Hey, this is Jeremy, and today we're going to be talking about bystander stress response. So this is really important to understand and at least be familiar with, because your bystanders are a part of your scene. They're just as much a part of the environment as your patient, you, your crew, and the entire situation. So you have to take them into account. Now, the bystanders, they can be friends, family, just people that pass by, but at the same time, they can still be a very valuable resource. So uh, you're going to have bystanders on just about any call where the patient doesn't call themselves if they're home alone. A cardiac arrest, a seizure, shortness of breath, those types of things. Those are typically going to have people there with them, or something close to that. Maybe a family member is the one that actually called 911, and they're not the ones that are on scene themselves. So that's really important to understand. And if your patient's too weak or unconscious or incapacitated, or maybe they're even in active arrest, the only way that you're going to be able to obtain information is going to be through those bystanders, the people that are on scene. And you have to really kind of do what you can to manage them effectively and keep them calm and collected. And the best way to do that is for you yourself to be calm and collected. Now, you need to recognize that we don't need to be breaking HIPAA, but at the same time, we do have to obtain information from the family or the friends. And if they ask what we're doing, you can explain the procedures if they're watching, or but if you're in the back of the ambulance, it may be best to leave them out of the ambulance and say we're doing everything we can. This is the hospital we're transporting to, and you can meet us there. But if we're going lights and sirens, don't follow us. Just get there when you get there, because nothing that you do whenever you first get there is going to initially change their care. Recognize the need for additional resources early. So if you know that you're working a cardiac arrest, or if you know that there's a lot of people on the scene, and it can be potentially dangerous for yourself, or maybe the bystanders, the family, the friends, they're not taking the situation so well. So call for those additional resources. Call for your supervisor. Call for the police department or the sheriff's office. Get somebody to come out there and maybe help direct the family and friends as to what's going on and what they can do to help, such as gathering the medications, and working out the past medical history of the patient if we don't have it in our computer systems already. And getting that information, that way whenever we do transport to the hospital, because at the end of the day, that is our goal, to transport a patient to the hospital. Whenever we accomplish that goal, that the hospital, they're going to have the family and friends to fall onto as a reliable resource as they trickle in or as they get there. So that's really important to understand. Understand that not everybody's going to react the same way to a situation. You're not going to react the same way. Your partner, and we, as 911 and EMS and paramedics, we run these calls on a regular basis. So these very high stressful, high acuity type calls, they become our almost every day. And there are normal people's once in a lifetime. So your every day is their once in a lifetime. And that's really important to understand. They can, the bystanders, watch for anxiety. This can cause them to be weak. They can be nauseous, vomiting. They can be having a blind panic of sorts. And whenever they do get in that blind panic, the judgment's going to disappear. And the best way to do that, or the best way to really help control that situation, is to grab them and direct them into a way that, hey, I need you to do this for me. Give them a task. Keep them task oriented. And as long as they're task oriented, at least they can somewhat be productive. Even if it's not anything you need, give them a task such as, hey, go grab the medications, get in the car, and have so-and-so drive you to the hospital. That can be just as important, especially if those medications aren't rapidly available. You can have a lot of depression on scene, crying, people who appear numbed or dazed, and they're just not there in the present situation. They become essentially disassociated with it. In some cases, it may be best to leave them that way, but in others, if you need help and you have the time to talk to them, talk to them. All right, and that can definitely be, again, they can be a valuable resource, but only if you through proper direction of getting the information, and that's part of your job as an EMT paramedic, is to be able to get that, maintain control of these situations. And a lot of people, they can overreact, such as they're going to bounce around from task to task. They're going to be making inappropriate jokes. They're going to be talking really fast, or become overly active in general. That's not necessarily a good thing, especially if they're not task oriented. If they're bouncing around from task to task, they can be picking up and putting down the same bag, the same box over and over and over again, thinking, oh well, I need to go grab this, and they're not oriented to what's going on. And if you recognize that, you need to be able to take control and provide them direction, even if it's for just a moment. Provide them some type of direction. That way they can still maintain control of themselves, or of that one task that they're getting. If they're in control of getting the medications, well, that's their task. And there's also this thing called conversion hysteria. Conversion hysteria is essentially whenever you have somebody that becomes completely disassociated. They may be unable to see, they may be unable to hear or feel anything. They may have a neglect of an extremity or a side. And those are the people that, in the movies, or maybe even in real life, if you've been in a situation where they're going to require a physical stimulation or a verbal stimulation or any type of external stimulation to bring them back into reality, to help them figure out what's going on. And part of controlling the bystanders and everything is maintaining your awareness. And the best way to do that is to stay calm, cool, and collected. And if you are calm, cool, and collected, you're going to be able to better control the situation. You're going to be able to better direct your teammates. You're going to be able to better direct the family and call for those additional resources in an organized way. And again, if you do have to call for resources, call for them early. As soon as you recognize, or you even see the need that you may need somebody else, call for them. And if it turns out that you don't need them, you can always cancel them after the fact. Or they can just be sitting around on scene as additional hands, just in case you do need something. And if you do come across this person that may be in that panic or depressed, or they're in clear anxiety, and you're trying to give somebody a task, don't say, hey, can somebody grab me medications? Look at somebody, point at somebody, and say, hey, you, or hey, John, whatever their name is. Say, hey, John, I need you to go get me the medications. I need you to go do this thing for me. And again, that's providing task orientation to that person. If that person that you have on your team is in that overreactive state where they're not necessarily being productive because they're not responding to the stressful situation well, you have to recognize that, and you have to give them a task, even if it's just, hey, squeeze this bag, or hey, go get the name and birthday. Those are all very important things. You may come across people who are on your team, or family and friends, who say, hey, we need to get going. You need to load them in the ambulance and you need to go. Sometimes that's important to do. Sometimes it's not. There are tasks that we have to accomplish sometimes before we actually start driving and rolling down the road. And that's going to be that initial stabilization of that patient. And as soon as you get that stabilization accomplished, you do need to be leaving. But if it takes you 3, 4, 5, maybe even 10 minutes to get your patient to where they're stable, and you can manage it with the assistance of maybe 1 or 2 riders on the way back, on the way to the hospital, that may be what you need to do, is to sit around for a second. and the family may not understand that. And a lot of lay people, they don't necessarily understand what it is that we do as providers. And that may be something that you need to talk about or have somebody else talk about. Again, provide somebody direction saying, hey, I need you to go let them know that we're going to be leaving. This is where we're going, but we have a couple things that we need to do in the back of the ambulance before we take off. And that's important. Um, Explain yourself if you have to. And if you're confident in yourself, your confidence is going to show. And the family, the friends, the patient even, they're going to believe in you, but only if you really believe in yourself. And that's an important concept to remember. And that's why we study. That's why we practice our skills, why we practice our knowledge, because whenever we need it, we need to have it. And that's just going to help you better recognize the treatments and the decisions that you need to make with your patients and with the bystanders, with your crew. And so just remember the recognizing signs of bystander stress. They can include anxiety, depression, overreaction. And remember that conversion hysteria, where they do lose sensation or they do lose senses, bodily senses. And those are the really big things that we need to remember about bystander and family stress reactions.